Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about studying and test taking. I think this is pretty prevalent, again, like last week's presentation, because a lot of us are probably taking midterms or just took some, and nevertheless, studying and test taking will be very prevalent throughout your college career. You're going to be taking a lot more tests, you're going to be studying for tests, quizzes, and even when you graduate, you'll be studying for different things. Who knows? And if you have any questions regarding the presentation, my email is right there, and feel free to email me anytime about any academic question you have. I'm here to help you, and I'm open to help. If you see me looking away, it's on my other screen, and I have some notes to help me discuss the points. Learning. When you think about learning, think of it as a process, and you can think of it as a three-step process: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is how you process it. It's how when your professor has a slide and you're reading the slide and they're talking it out loud. That is visually you're reading the slide and you're also listening to what the professor has to say. That is part of the encoding and acquiring that information. And it poses a question: how do you learn best? Do you learn best a visual learner, audio, or do you like a combination of of those two? The next one, storage. Part of learning is having that storage where it's like putting the information in your brain, and then think of it as the retrieval is as you put something in your brain, but you want to be able to take it back out too, because if you just put it in there and you can't take it out, what's the point? So memory is our capacity for storing and retrieving information. It is critical to understand these steps and stages in learning, because some of us might be stuck at the encoding process or storage and might not be able to get to the retrieval. And an example of this would be if we're let's be honest, sometimes we're lazy. We don't want to take notes. And sometimes we do is we just print out our professor's notes and we just assume, oh, I already know it because I printed it out. It sounds weird, but you know a lot of us are like that. You print it out and you put it in your notes and you act like you took notes. But really, taking notes doesn't just mean taking notes. It means absorbing, encoding, and storing information so you can retrieve it later. But if you just print it and never look at it, you will not be able to have that information in your memory. So let's talk about some strategies, and these strategies are specifically in-class strategies. And this is somewhat tailored to being in person, but it also can be for your live lectures, and also in any lecture in general. But during the weekend, when you have a little bit more free time, review the material that will be covered in that class that week. This way, you've already seen the information once. This enables the encoding process to speed up to the next stage of storing it. And before you know it, you'll be able to retrieve it much quicker, and that's why it's important. If a professor uses PowerPoint in class, ask for the PowerPoint beforehand to highlight and review. And notice how I didn't say just print it out and put it in your notes. I said highlight and review. You're also probably going to want to take notes and additional supplemental notes on your own end, but it is good to see that information before class to know what the professor is talking about. So you don't go into class just empty mind, just don't know what you're talking about, don't know what you're going to be listening to about, and just kind of staring off in the distance. Be prepared. Put phone on silent to avoid distraction. I find this to be really important because a lot of us could be in class on our phone while the professor's talking, looking up, listening. I'm listening, but also scrolling Instagram or Snapchatting our friends. That is a distraction, and that's a big one because if you're not paying attention, you're not going to be able to encode and store that information to be able to retrieve it later. And I keep referring to that process of learning, and it's important. You're not going to be able to learn if you're distracted. You can't learn if you're distracted. Next one, sit up. Make sure you have good posture, and that's because if you slouch, you're going to be distracted. Let's be honest. If I'm slouching in class, it means my attention isn't there. I'm not paying attention to the professor. I don't really care what they're saying. I'm just thinking about the time. What time does the class end so I can leave? And I'm also probably on my phone, looking back, scrolling. So if you sit up good posture, it just puts you in a better mindset and it makes you pay more attention in general. So definitely, it's a little thing, but I think it is pretty helpful to keep a consideration. Next one, ask questions at the end of the class to clarify anything. I think this is really important because if you're with the professor, if you're taking a class, and obviously it's with professors for the most part, unless you have a true asynchronous class. But at the end of the class, If you have any questions or anything you're just confused about, go and talk to the professor. The professor will want to talk to you. They will take that as a sign that you care about what was spoken about in class, and they'll take the time to maybe explain something. And if they have to go somewhere, take this as an opportunity to say, to schedule an appointment or go to the office hours. But getting that relationship with the professor also has its other benefits, such as maybe you're going to get a recommendation later. And another one that you don't really think about is people, professors are also human. They have sympathy. So if you're able to develop a decent relationship with them, maybe at the end of the semester when your grade is like on the border of being able to be curved or not, or sorry, not curved, but if you have like 89.4 rounded up, if it can be rounded up, maybe having that relationship will actually help. It has its benefits. I wouldn't take that for granted. As simple as that sounds, it's one that could come in handy. You don't really want to use it, but it could come in handy. The next one, topic is reflection. Reflection is obviously important in all realms of life, but especially when understanding how to study. Where do you prefer to study? Do you prefer to study at home or the library? I have a lot of peers that get distracted. They play a lot of video games. That means they need to be in the library to study. Is that you? If it is, understand that and take the advantage of reflection and go and study in the library. Don't stay at home and be distracted and not get your work done and study. Sometimes, for me personally, I'm better at studying at home because I like to scan at my desk, get to work, and do work. Another thing, do you study a little each day or last minute for hours leading up to an exam? This is an honest question you have to ask yourself. And if you really think about it, most of the time you're saying, well, most of the time I end up just cramming the day before, 2 days before for an exam, and I do pretty good. Ultimately, that is really stressful, and that puts a lot of pressure on you. And that is not the optimal approach to learning. The optimal approach is to study a little bit each day. Break it up. Like I said in the time management, break task up little by little and over a long period of time. Not too long, but over a period of time, and break it up, and it makes it a lot easier to to encode that information, store it, and part of that storage process is if you keep seeing the information a lot consistently over a long time, you actually have you have a better understanding compared to if you just cram the information. So keep that in mind. You might be doing okay cramming, but you'll probably do even better or be less stressful, less pressure if you're able to break that up and study a little bit each day. That's why studying consistency is greater than cramming. Please take that advice. It's very, I think, good advice, and it's just good advice just in general. Don't take my word for it. This is, if you're looking at your textbook, it does say to study a little bit each day compared to just cramming and procrastinating. And the next thing is, what study tools help you to learn? Think about it. If Do you use Quizlet? Does that help you do like the digital flashcards? Does that help you memorize things and do well on exams? Or do you just like paper and pen? Do you like writing things out and just writing things over and over and over to help you get that in your memory? Or does rereading your highlights or rereading your notes help you? Understanding the tools that help you learn will help you store the information to retrieve it later on. Because if you are sticking to a method that is not really optimal for your learning style and learning approach, but more so your learning style, then really you're just kind of maybe wasting time and not really doing the most you can do to perform your best before the test. This is and the next portion of these slides are going to talk about test taking, and this one is before the test. What are some simple things that you all have heard before? So I'll go through it quick. Sleep. People like to say you need to sleep 6 to 8 hours. I believe, and I've heard and read in different research studies, that it's really closer to 7 to 9 hours. Get that sleep. It is really important, and don't just get sleep before the test. Make sure you're getting that sleep consistently and build a nice routine because that I feel like that is the best way to memorize things. Your memory is enhanced when you have a lot of sleep, and you're able to get a lot more work done, which will in effect make you have more time to study and make you memorize more things and just be more prepared. Eat a solid meal before, as well as hydrate. If you're thinking about your stomach's growling during the test, you're not going to do well. And if you're thirsty during the test, probably not going to do well because you're focused on something else except the test. Now let's get to more of the studying before the test. This is something that I've noticed works is to review your notes a little bit, but just skim. Don't go into in depth. Don't read every single line. Just read everything. Just read a little bit. Just skim and focus on what you know. If you get caught up in lines like, "Oh, I don't really know this. I don't remember. I can't remember it. I don't remember studying for this." If it's the day of the test, you probably won't know it in a couple of hours or even an hour or two. You won't know it. So focus on what you know to just get those points on the exam that you do know. Next, take a deep breath and clear your mind. It is important to do this to relieve your nerves or any stress you have about the exam. And I find this to be the one you can say to take a deep breath and clear your mind, but sometimes it doesn't work. But with practice, you have to realize you take a deep breath, clear your mind, and also just tell yourself that, hey, my grade in the exam does not define me. I've worked hard for this exam. I studied very hard. So whatever result happens, I'm just going to accept it because I tried my best. I find that to be the best approach. But if I always put pressure on myself, I'm scared, I need to perform. What if I do if I don't do it? What if I do if I don't do good? Then I don't do that good. But if I just put the trust in my studying and preparation, I believe fortune will favor me and favor yourself as well. Test time. Read instructions for the test. Sometimes you get the test paper, start doing the problems. But you might mess up if there's an important instruction. So don't just rush into the problems. Make sure you read instructions. Answer the questions you know first. At the end of the day, these exams are about points. It's a point game. So get every single point you can possibly get. It's kind of like then don't and if leaving an answering an answer and getting it wrong does not affect your answer doesn't affect your score negatively. For instance, if you got it wrong, you don't get negative points. You just don't get points. Don't leave anything blank as well. That's just a SAT strategy or SAT and ACT strategy. Also, during test time, you might have the urge to second guess yourself. So don't do that. Trust your gut that your first response is usually correct. Lengthy questions. You might be approach a large question and be intimidated by it, but understand that within a big problem are probably little problems. Underline the important things and recognize certain patterns. Okay, this would I underline this. Try to combine them together and really understand what the problem is asking of you, and break it down to little pieces that are not as intimidating. Again, test time. We took a deep breath before the exam, but also during the exam, we need to stay calm and keep track of time. Don't let don't look at your watch at the very end like, oh, I had 30 seconds and I didn't finish everything. No, keep track of your time and know how many more questions you have. I like to, well, before each exam, if I know how many questions there are and what the time limit is, I like to think about how many or how much time I have per question and do that as a rough estimate. So if I have 2 minutes per question, I'm taking my time doing 2 minutes per question. But sometimes what I meant by the estimate is you're probably going to finish some questions under 2 minutes and some over 2 minutes. So it'll average out. Just keep in mind and keep track of the time. And that's very important. In conclusion, we discussed studying and test taking. We discussed studying strategies and reflection and the learning process about encoding, storage, and then retrieval. And then test taking, we talked about before the test and how to prepare. We talked about some strategies during the exam. So I hope you could take away something from this presentation and have a great week and do good on your exams. I believe in you.